This courtroom hearing starts off like a routine restitution discussion, but quickly turns into something much deeper. We're looking at a case where therapy costs, credibility, and truth itself are being questioned under oath. The victim is asking for thousands in reimbursement, but not all therapy is created equal, and the judge is about to dig into every detail. From traditional psychotherapy to alternative treatments, the court must decide what's legitimate and what's not. And just when you think it's only about money, a bond violation twist changes everything. The real question is, who's being honest here, and who's pushing the limits of the system?
One issue, that's why we're having a hearing on it, and also the recommended 3 days of jail time for the bond violations. Right, and that's another point we wanted to address.
Okay, the bond violations, you're right. Well, why don't we start with the restitution hearing? Let's get that out of the way, and we can try to formulate something that encompasses a whole sentence. And counsel, there was one issue that came up and received and I think copies were sent to the parties because the court had reviewed it.
So I know, Ms. Morley, you submitted a request today for lost wages as well as reimbursement for therapy costs. So we've already had a conversation about just proceeding forward with the request for therapy costs and not lost wages. So we're going to just talk about therapy costs today. As far as that goes, it's my understanding that you've received 2 types of therapy. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Can you tell me what those 2 types of therapy are?
The first type is more of a traditional type of therapy, I guess you would say. And the second type is somatic craniosacral therapy.
When you say traditional type of therapy, are you saying like psychotherapy?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell me who you see for that?
I see Wendy Polinsky for that.
Okay. Do you know about how much you're requesting for psychotherapy specifically today?
I believe it was close to $3,000, maybe a little less.
For just psychotherapy?
Oh, I don't know, between the two.
Okay, so if I told you 145904, does that sound right? Okay. Can you tell me, does insurance cover those appointments for you?
It does.
Has it always covered those appointments for you in total?
Not in total. I do pay some out of pocket.
Okay. So has your out of pocket cost for those changed over time? When immediately following this incident, can you tell me about how long it was before you had your first psychotherapy appointment?
After September 22nd, I had a therapy appointment. I think it was a couple of days after. It was over the weekend.
Okay. And was it have you had appointments ongoing since then, or did you stop?
Ongoing.
Okay. And do you know about how many appointments you've had?
I've gone at least once a week since September 22nd. That would be, but
If I said 22 appointments?
that's fair.
Okay. So talking a little bit about psychotherapy, can you tell me just kind of what that modality is like as far as therapy?
Yeah, I originally started going to that particular kind of therapy before this event even started because of the toxic workplace that I was working in that Jason had created. And after this event, I started going at least once a week. And that was really helped me kind of realize that this person that I had looked up to and thought was a mentor was actually very manipulative and abusive.
But so when I'm asking about modality, I mean, is it a movement therapy? Is it a talk therapy? Something? Okay. Is it one-on-one?
Yes.
Is it in person?
Yes.
Okay. And so what makes these appointments after the incident with the defendant in September different from the appointments before, if anything?
Or I was just hoping that I could go to therapy for generalized anxiety around going to this workplace, hoping that therapy would help. After the event, it was more centered on coming to terms with the fact that this guy that I admired and looked up to was abusive and trying to work through how I had gotten to that point and just trying to understand how I had worked for somebody like that for so long.
Hold on a moment. So you were seeing the same therapist prior to September 22nd?
That's correct.
For how long?
I would say a month before. Maybe 2 months before. I can't remember. I think her letter specifies.
I don't.
I was just about to.
Okay, go ahead.
Has your therapist, Wendy Klinsky, written a letter explaining her treatment related to this incident for you? If you saw that today, would you recognize it? Can you tell me, is there a specific link between those post-September 22nd appointments and the defendant's actions on September 22nd?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, every single therapy appointment that I've been to since this happened has been about this incident.
In what way?
Trying to heal from the trauma of it and understand how I was in the position in the first place.
Okay, turning to the second kind of therapy you mentioned at the start, what is that?
That is craniosacral therapy, which I did online. Would I describe it?
Please.
After the event happened, I would say around October time, I was experiencing symptoms of PTSD, and my friend who knows therapists suggested that I go see this craniosacral therapist for my PTSD because it was getting so bad where I couldn't even eat or sleep or accept like a hug from someone, much like dissolve into panic attacks. And so I started seeing them to be able to touch the trauma of the event and relive the event without dissolving into panic attacks every day.
Okay. So you have psychotherapy, which is talk therapy. What type of activities do you engage in this second type of therapy?
I would say the initial part of the session is talk therapy, and then we go into more of the craniosacral part of it, which is lying flat and kind of envisioning the trauma and going to the event without and being able to touch it, I guess, without dissolving into panic attacks.
And you said you did it online?
Yes.
How does that work?
The two therapists and I start off with conversation and just kind of talk about like where I'm at, how I'm feeling and everything like that. And then we go into, I like lay down in, my room or wherever I feel comfortable, and they kind of guide me through kind of like a meditation. And we slowly work through the trauma surrounding the event, the trauma that I have after the fact of daily trauma, kind of just talking about like how to kind of access that part of my brain and myself. So it kind of helps me alleviate the stress and trauma, both physically and mentally, in a way that the talk therapy wasn't addressing.
So I have that you started craniosacral sessions in February. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. And so you've only had 7 sessions. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's all.
The most recent being in June. And as far as those 7 sessions, did you have any insurance coverage for those sessions? Can you tell me how much your out-of-pocket expense was? Okay. If you saw an invoice for those sessions today, would you recognize it? Your Honor, the people move to admit people's proposed exhibit number 3.
Any objection of what here?
I didn't admit the previous ones, did I?
You did not.
Your Honor, the people move to admit people's proposed exhibits 1 and 2. Thank you.
Exhibits 1, 2, and 3 for the record are admitted.
Thank you. Clearly undercaffeinated.
Apparently.
Can you tell me a little bit about how...
This is where things start to get really interesting. The victim openly admits she initially thought this craniosacral therapy was woo-woo or questionable, but now claims it's been one of the most helpful treatments she's had. That's a powerful emotional statement, but in a courtroom, feelings alone aren't enough. The defense immediately begins probing deeper. Where is this therapist located? Are they licensed? Is there any verifiable proof of their credentials? These are critical questions because restitution isn't just about whether something helped. It's about whether it meets legal standards for compensation. So now the tension builds. Is this legitimate therapy or something the court simply can't recognize? What do you think? Should emotional benefit outweigh lack of formal credentials?
Know that she's licensed. And through whom?
Do you know through whom she's licensed?
I don't, I mean, I can find out, but I don't know.
Well, okay, go ahead.
So just to be clear, in total for the craniosacral sessions, because it's 7 appointments at $90 each, that's a request for $630 for those appointments. And then we previously said $1,459.04 for the psychotherapy appointments. Is that correct? So you're asking for a total of $2,089.04 today? Okay. Nothing further at this time, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Allen, can you hand me those exhibits?
Ms. Marley, I just have a few questions for you, just to clarify a couple of things. It should not take very long. I kind of specifically wanted to ask you about the cardiosacral therapy. So this Michelle Tupko, the woman that wrote the letter, it's somebody that your friend recommended, correct? Okay. And you didn't go to your insurance company to see if that's something that could be covered by insurance?
Yeah, she doesn't accept insurance.
She does not accept insurance. Okay, and did you look for her through your insurance? Like my insurance lets me go on the website and search for professionals to see. Okay, did you find her in the list? Okay. And so these are virtual sessions, correct? So you understand that Ms. Tupko lives in a different state, right?
Yes.
North Carolina, is that right? Okay. Do you know if she has an office?
She does.
Well, have you seen it? Have you been there?
I've not been there, but I've, during our virtual sessions, I see it.
Okay, and you said there was a partner also? Do you know if their business has a website?
They're actually making a website right now.
Okay, so no
Hey,
website.
what?
They're making a website as we speak.
Well, because when I was looking for the Way of Wild Remembrance healing therapies, I was not able to find anything online. So that's why I was curious so no website to your knowledge, correct? Okay, and you said it is your understanding that Ms. Tupko is licensed, right? But you were not able to find her through your insurance, correct?
Correct.
Okay, did you verify her license in any way?
I have not in the modality to do that, so I don't verify licenses, so no, I didn't.
Okay, so you just assumed she was licensed?
I took her at her word that she's licensed.
Okay, but you've never seen any confirmation, never looked into it yourself,
We
correct?
look her up online and see if she's licensed.
Where would you look her up online?
Google her name, you can see that she's licensed.
Well, I did Google her name and I only found a LinkedIn profile. Are you familiar with it, LinkedIn? Okay. And I found, there's no picture of an individual, but the only person with that name, it says Ann Arbor, is a Thai massage therapist.
Well,
Is a what?
Thai massage.
Got it.
But you looked her up on Google? Okay, but you said there's no website though, right?
right, they're making one right now. Yes.
How do you know they're making one right now?
Because we've discussed it. I'm a web designer.
On what?
We've discussed it. I'm a web designer.
Were you aware that this is something that I learned while I was preparing for this hearing, that there's the Biodynamic Cardiosacral Therapy Association of North America?
No, I was not aware of that.
Okay, well, and so there's a website that lets you look for practitioners who are licensed specifically to perform biodynamic cardiosacral therapy. And I was not able to find Ms. Tupko in Michigan or North Carolina or really anywhere through that website. Is that surprising to you?
No, just not right now.
Okay.
Well, we may have to get that person up here to testify because I don't. Do you know why they're? Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Malinka, but I just got to get some things clarified here. Did you read this letter of May 3rd? Did you request this letter from them?
Yes, I did.
And because I'm looking at Exhibit 4, they don't have letterhead.
No, they don't. They're not very web-based people.
A letterhead doesn't take web. I mean, I just.
That's not something that they're good at doing, and that's why.
Well, you know a lot about these people, but why don't you just answer my question?
Well,
My
that's
question. Mr. Malinka, go ahead, because apparently I'm not going to get an answer. Go ahead.
All right, and just to clarify, I believe you
You know what?
you testified that you started this kind of psychotherapy in February, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so you didn't increase your sessions with your psychotherapist, you just started doing a different type of therapy on your
I
own.
added it when they were available, which was once a month.
Okay, but you were not referred to them through your current therapist, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and I believe your psychotherapist letter indicated that you started therapy with them in June of 2020, correct? So you sought out that months prior to the events of September 22nd, correct? Thank you. I don't have any other questions for you.
How are these bills to the Way of Wild Remembrance paid?
Through your PayPal.
You have the PayPal receipts?
Not on me, no, but I can get them.
You should be able to download them now and send them to the prosecutor. I want to see that these were paid. And I'm still curious. Let's back up. Great Lakes Psychology Group. You actually go in there?
Yes.
Okay. You were seeing them before the date of this incident, right? Before September 22nd. And who was this individual that referred you to Way of Wild? Remember it?
One of my friends who had done some work.
Who was that?
Who was my friend?
That's my question.
Her name is Susan Ulrich.
Last name. Did she say how she knows the therapist?
She had some work done from them when they lived in Ann Arbor.
Somewhat.
Some work done from them when they lived in Ann Arbor.
Conversation you had about them being licensed. Did they say who they were licensed through?
They did, but I don't remember if that was the first talks that we had during our first conversation.
Some or another, I need to download payment records if they exist for that. Like I said, there shouldn't be a reason she can't get them right now.
Now the judge steps in, and you can feel the tone shift immediately. This is no longer just a discussion, it's scrutiny. The court is openly questioning the legitimacy of the therapist, the lack of documentation, and even the payment methods. PayPal receipts are requested, but what shows up doesn't fully match the invoices. That's a major red flag. In legal terms, inconsistencies like this can completely undermine a claim. The judge is essentially saying, if I can't verify it, I can't award it. This moment highlights a key legal principle. Proof matters more than personal belief. And here's the bigger issue. If the foundation of these therapy claims is shaky, the entire restitution request starts to fall apart. So ask yourself, is the system being too strict, or is this exactly how it should work?
Anyway, and there may be a valid reason for it, but I don't have letterhead, which would seem unusual of drafting a letter. But also, I noticed that only one of the therapists signed this letter on May 3rd. And I'm worried about the credentials of this individual only because I don't I typically, when we see these and there's therapy, not that there has to be, I usually have some letters after their name denoting some type of degree or some type something. And I have nothing on this letter at all. And I don't. Well, I have nothing on the letter, and I am not finding them anywhere. I also can see the payment. It looks like payment records from Great Lakes, but I don't see payment. I'm going to need that if I were to even consider awarding it, the payment records to the other place. I want to clarify one thing. Ma'am, you testified here that they don't accept insurance. So if they don't accept insurance, why'd you submit it to your insurance?
Just to see if it would be covered. I did that with another doctor who's out of network.
Well, hold on a second. To see if they would cover what?
Anything out of network. Sometimes my insurance does.
But they had already told you they don't accept it?
Right, but I figured I would try just because it was so expensive.
Okay, so they told you they don't accept insurance. You're telling me you submitted it to your insurance after that?
Yes.
Okay, I'll ask, what would be the purpose of that?
Sometimes my insurance covers things that are out of network from out of network providers, even if it's a small amount. So I thought I would try to see if they would cover any of it.
We're going to take a recess. I want to see the one thing I want to see is I want to see these receipts from PayPal. I need to see them. Court's going to stand in recess. And let me just say that the reason that so that the record is clear that the court called counsel and probation back is because I had received a communication from a Tanya Desfantes regarding the, I guess, credentials of Miss Tuco. And upon receiving it, it was received in my office. I didn't quite know what to make of it, so I called counsel back to deal with what the court was supposed to do with that issue. The sum and substance of that is talking about, and I guess I'll begin there. It's just kind of the reverse of the order of proofs. But the sum and substance of that is that there is some accreditation, some licensure, something that makes what Ms. Tuco does, I don't want to use the word legitimate, but some type of therapy that the court should consider in this case. There are a few problems that I have with entering into that, not necessarily into that analysis, but coming to that conclusion. I, along with my staff, searched all over to find something regarding Ms. Tuco, the credentials to tie the therapy testified to into therapy that could be related to the offense in this case. And I'm trying to say this in the most respectful fashion I can, but I don't believe that let me back up a second. We could find no licensure in the state of Michigan, nor could we find any licensure, Ms. Tuco, in the state of North Carolina, where she now resides. And we found, in part because of what was sent to us regarding that therapy, and also the testimony of the victim in this case, we found their accreditation page and searched for basically 3 different individuals. First of all, the individual who sent the letter, that's the February 2022 letter, vouching for the credentials of Ms. Tuco, searched for that individual, and which is basically, and we found that individual as being a member of that association. Then search for Ms. Tuco as well as the parents, and neither come up either under a search of North America, or the United States, I should say, and or on the search internationally. They don't come up, which leads this court, given the evidence that's before it, to question the credentials to engage or have some therapy which would be related to this case. And I'm worried, well, I'm not worried. I make the specific finding that I'm not sure that this is even a business. I can't too close company or assume name, whatever it is, and ask for, during the testimony, a proof of payment. Now, I will say that proof of payment, it was testified to, said it was paid through PayPal. Ultimately, I was provided, look like payments, but they're not through PayPal at all. They're through Cash App. And there are a series of them. And so I took those receipts or those payments and matched them to the invoices. What's clear to me in this, and I will make the specific finding, is that these invoices, I don't think existed prior to or at the time of the payment. Reason I say that is because the payments and the invoices don't match up. They're not, some of them are not necessarily all that close if payment was made when services were rendered. And I'm going to start at the end, but then come back to the beginning. But I received a June 23rd payment to Ms. Tuco, and there's no invoice for June 23rd. And the court is not going to then consider it because I don't even have an invoice for that payment. But then when I go through, and now I'm going to go back to the beginning, there was a payment made by Ms. Morley of $90 on February 5th. That matches the February 5th invoice. And so that date matches. Go to the next invoice, which was February 18th. And one ought to pay very close attention to this, because then the invoice says it was submitted on the 19th. Now, I guess theoretically that kind of thing could happen, maybe, but the problem with that is that if the invoice is on the 19th, that means Miss Morley would have made a payment prior to receiving the services. Typically not how that happens. And I would note, just parenthetically, that the invoices from Great Lakes Psychology all match when the payment was made. It says when the payments were made. Looks much like those receipts that one would receive at a doctor. But going back then to the 18th one, kind of matches, but she would have made it before then. Well, there's then a payment made by Miss Morley on March 3rd. And again, that would have been a payment made prior to the invoice. And the invoice is March 5th. So again, I don't believe it happened that way. I don't believe that she paid before that happened, which leads me to some doubt as to these records that are being supplied to the court. And I don't mean that by counsel supplying them to the court, but the ones that were presented to counsel to give to the court. There is then a March 14th. The March 14th one, I believe, matches, if I'm not mistaken. The March 14th one. There's that. There's March then 24th, and behind one page. The March 24th one also does not match, because the payment would have occurred prior to the invoice date. Again, it's not something that would happen. Then the remainder of those for April 1st payment and for the I think it's June 9th payment, those match the exact date. So the conclusion that the court comes to in terms of looking at those invoices and looking through all of this closely, trying to find Ms. Tutko, trying to see if she has any type of certification for any therapy, listening to Ms. Morley testify about how she came into contact with her. I don't think this has anything to do with the events or is directly related in any way whatsoever to the events of September 22nd. I do not, and I will say that these documents submitted to the court regarding this, the, put it in quotes, therapy that Ms. Morley received is of dubious nature and quality in this court's mind. And the court is not going to award any restitution for those particular items with regard to Ms. Tuco. Again, specifically, the court will find that it's not directly related to the incident which we're here for from September of 2023. Getting then to the, and let me just, before I leave the Tuco, and let me just also say that the letter that was sent, the information contained within, I don't think Ms. Tuco can make the diagnosis that she's making in this. I just don't see how she could with any representation, assuming this to have actually come from her, because I don't have letterhead. I don't have anything from what presumably is a therapist association or therapy, business involved in therapy. Going to the Great Lakes psychology, I don't at all have the problems that I had with Ms. Chuko's business. But the letter that was sent, the May 1st letter that was sent, and the court's going to quote a specific portion of that letter, which is the second paragraph. And it says, during her September 24th session, Ms. Morley disclosed the assault that had taken place by her employer and further shared the nature of their relationship. The primary focus since the event that occurred has been placed on addressing the trauma that has surrounded the relationship, in addition to addressing symptoms related to PTSD. What that tells me is that the only therapy that was directly related to the events of September 22nd was the therapy that occurred on the 24th of September. Because specifically, Ms. Klinsky clearly indicates that the rest of the time was about the relationship and symptoms related to PTSD from other events and processes, and talks about the concern of her work environment and the impact that it was having on her mental health. Unrelated to those events in this court's mind. Also, so that the record's clear, and it's very clear the testimony in court has considered it, therapy began prior to the September 22nd date. So there was therapy with Great Lakes on the 13th of September, and then again on the 24th, and then there were therapy afterwards. This letter doesn't indicate that they dealt with the events or the actions of the defendant as it relates to this charge anytime after the 24th, when the event was relayed to Great Lakes. And so therefore, with reference to that, the restitution request on that, the court is only going to award the restitution for therapy for that one date. That's the only date, again, that is directly related to the events that the defendant participated in. I have no other proof that any time after that anything happened. So in sum and total, and for those reasons, the court would and will order restitution in the amount of $147.38. Now, with reference to and there were really three issues. That's the one issue regarding the restitution, which is going to take most of our time. There is then the issue regarding the violation. And I was going to take it into account in sentencing, but I think the court needs to make it clear what the court's going to do with that. And I'm a bit dismayed. I can only just put it that way. Dismayed, maybe a little bit angry in a certain respect. Mr. Stevens properly admitted to the violation regarding that contact because he wrote something on an envelope. Regarding mail that he had received that he believed should have gone to Miss Morley. It was relayed that, and so there, technically, because he wrote that, there was indeed this violation. Ms. Morley, is she related to probation and otherwise, was indicating that Mr. Stevens was trying to sort of tell her what to do or was making some threat. So at the last hearing, the only portion of the envelope we had was the one half of the envelope. Counsel for defendant had indicated that there was a credit card which was in that envelope. I couldn't see the full envelope, so I didn't know, but I know that there was a credit card coming. It was likely going to either be a blank envelope or it was going to say very little about the fact that it was a credit card that was in. When I saw the full envelope, it's very clear that there was a credit card that was finally admitted. It was also very clear that to this court that the defendant wasn't attempting by any means to try to direct Ms. Morley or anyone or anything else along those lines or threaten her in any way. The only thing he was saying is, this is addressed to you. I'm giving it to you. I hope you do the right thing with this. If it had been a company credit card, which I believe that it was, if it was a company credit card, it's his company. He, quite frankly, could have opened it and said, I opened it because I knew it was a company credit card and she wasn't supposed to have it at that point. But that's not what he did. And to be honest with you, I think he attempted to try to do the right thing. What I'm angry about is the representation made to this court, my probation department, and everyone else that he was attempting to make a threat or in some way intimidate Ms. Morley. Absolutely not. That is not what happened. Everything the defendant represented to this court regarding that envelope, that violation, turned out to be absolutely true the moment I asked for that full envelope. The court could verify. So therefore, while the defendant has admitted to that violation, I'm vacating his admission to that violation. I am not sentencing on the violation because while there was a technical violation, I don't believe that that violation was meant to be anything. He was just trying to do the right thing. So I'm setting aside that admission and I'm doing nothing further with this alleged violation. Ms. Yermolenko, you have said that you have reviewed the report. There are no material deletions, corrections, or additions to that report. Is there anything you or your client would like to say before the court does approve that?
Can I ask the court to follow the recommendation? Thank you.
Sir, is there anything you want to say before I impose sentence?
Thank you.
It's a sentence of the court. I'm going to place you on 18 months prosecutor deferred sentence. You're to pay $555 fines and court costs, $540 probation oversight fees, $147 and I think 38 cents is what I said, restitution payable to Kashmir Morley, payable through the court. When can you pay that, sir? Pay that today. The restitution would be paid in cash at the counter, or okay, everything else could be paid in different way. That's to be paid today. There's to be no use of alcohol, recreational marijuana, or any illegal substance. You'll be subject to random testing as directed by probation. You are to complete a domestic violence program as directed by probation. There is to be no contact with Kashmir Morley, directly or indirectly. There's to be no assault or threatening or intimidating behavior. You are not to possess any weapons, firearms, ammunition, or anything fashioned to be a weapon. I'll set a review hearing on this matter that is to be held September 16, 2024 at 1 p.m. I will order 93 days in jail. Credit for served, balance suspended. Thank you.
In the end, the judge delivers a very calculated and precise ruling. Out of over $2,000 requested in therapy-related restitution, only $147.38 is approved, and that's strictly limited to a single therapy session directly tied to the incident. Everything else? Denied due to lack of credibility, insufficient documentation, and questionable legitimacy. The craniosacral therapy, in particular, is completely rejected. On top of that, the alleged bond violation is dismissed after the judge determines the defendant was actually trying to do the right thing, not intimidate anyone. The final sentence includes probation, fines, strict conditions, and no contact orders. This case is a powerful reminder. In court, evidence beats emotion every time. Now we want to hear from you. Do you agree with the judge's decision, or do you think the victim deserved more? White right pointing backhand index if you found this case as intense as we did. Make sure to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping courtroom breakdowns.